Mick lived with that. I mean, he was terrified of getting Hodgkin's disease. It just never was the same for Mick, because he needed him so much.
I've lived without a dad since I'm 15. Mickey was 18, so I know that feeling. I know that loss when you do something great, you want to pick up the phone and say, hey, you want to look in the stands and see him go. When you don't have it, it's a big hole, and you either come to grips with it and value the good times, or you remain this hurt little kid and do stuff to make it try to disappear. And that's what he tried to do. This young kid inherits fear. He inherits, I'm next. He inherits a death sentence. I'm gonna die before I'm 40. That fear drove him to despair. It drove him to the bottle. It drove him to, who gives a shit? I'm a dead man.
Mickey Mantle lived the rest of his life with emotional and physical pain. It was difficult to tell which took more of a toll, although it's hard to imagine how he played at all with 15 bone fractures over the course of his career.
He played with every kind of imaginable injury that an athlete could possibly have.
He was playing center field. He couldn't raise up his arm, but nobody knew it except the trainer and the ball players.
If you know Mantle, he was going to play if he could walk on one leg. And I don't know how he could do it, but he was hurt all the time.
Despite his injuries in the early 1960s, Mickey Mantle was still a great player on a great team. The Yanks were in the World Series each year from 1960 to 1964, and won in 1961 and 62. In 61, he challenged Babe Ruth's single-season home run record. And in 62, he won his third MVP award. In the 64 World Series, Mantle hit 3 homers, raising his total to a World Series record 18, including the winner in Game 3. It was his last great October moment, as decades of Yankee dominance came to a sudden end.
Do you enjoy baseball any more now than when you first broke in?
I enjoy it just as much. I get a bigger kick out of hitting home runs now, and it seemed like we'd win a lot more, and when we win a game now, it's a lot of fun.
After averaging 37 home runs a year his previous 10 seasons, Mickey Mantle never topped 23 after 1964. And once a lock to bat 300, the Mick was a .250 hitter his final years in pinstripes. It was as painful to watch as it had become for him to play.
He used to wrap himself every day, you know, both legs, all the way up to the thigh, down to the ankle with these big, thick cushion wraps.
You take that big swing and go down on one knee like that, and you just feel the pain, you know? Yeah, it was tough.
He'd run into third base and like sort of tiptoe because he couldn't come to a sudden stop. What's he doing at first base?
We wanted to win so bad. I've seen him go 0 for 4, and we lose by 1 run, and he'd go down and start crying. And there's my idol down there crying, and it was sad.
You could feel that he was going down.
It's never depicted more precisely than Mother's Day '67, when he hits the 500th home run on what is a dank, early spring day. Watch him go around the bases that day.
Mickey, how long do you think you'll be playing?
Well, I hope I can play another 2 or 3 years. I'd like to hit 600 home runs, and I need about 85 more, so that's why it will take a long time.
Mantle never did come anywhere near hitting that 600th home run. During spring training in 1969, he announced his retirement, simply saying, "I can't play anymore. I have to quit."
He tumbled to 237 in his final season. He lost his lifetime 300 average that year.
And that was his great regret, was hitting 298 lifetime. He says, I was a 300 hitter.
This is one of the proudest moments I've ever had on this hallowed baseball ground. The magnificent Yankee, the great number 7, Mickey Mantle. I've often wondered how a man who knew he was going to die could stand here and say that he was the luckiest man in the world. But now I think I know how Lou Gehrig felt. I'll never forget it. God bless you all, and thank you very much.
Mickey was a lost child without baseball. And he had nightmares. In one, he was always trying to leg out an infield hit. And he never got it, never made it. The other dream he had was he was late getting to the ballpark. He heard his name being called. He couldn't find a gate that was open. And he could see Billy and Yogi and Whitey. And he was trying to crawl through this fence. He got caught at the hips and couldn't get through. Then he'd wake up.
He always felt he didn't do well enough. An image of his father just looking down saying, "You screwed up, kid, you screwed up." He never could be what his father wanted for him or expected of him. It just wasn't good enough.
There was always a sadness, I thought, about him, a wistfulness about him. Any knowledgeable person who saw Mantle at his best would tell you that Mickey Mantle was one of the 10 best non-pitchers who ever breathed. But no matter how great he was, he felt he did not achieve all he should have achieved. He thought he truly had a chance to come close to being what Babe Ruth had been.
He just felt like he had dissipated so much just off the field. Lack of sleep, too much carousing.
Now, he's as much to blame for that as fate may be, but there was that might have been quality to Mantle. What might have been?
What could I have been?
When we got out of baseball, we were broke. People would say, "What are you going to do now that you're retired?" And I said, "Go look for a job." Mickey, the same thing. He didn't have any money.
I'm not a mental heavyweight, you know, and I was a little bit worried of how I was going to make money.
He had several businesses. He tried to run a restaurant. He was in an employment business with Joe Namath. But none of them were satisfying emotionally, and none of them were businesses where he made a great deal of money.
After his career ended in ball is when it really started getting bad. Because, I mean, a lot of his jobs, you know, after he retired were cocktail parties, banquets. People always expected him, "Hey, have a drink, you know, have a drink." That's how he dealt with the people. He was a shy person, a few drinks, and he was live for the party.
Whitey, if we'd had a great tasting beer that was less filling in the old days, can you imagine where we'd be now?
Yeah, the Beer Drinkers Hall of Fame.
Over time, Mantle used the bottle to grow closer to the kids he once neglected. It was a desperate attempt to make up for lost time. He and the boys, who were now grown, had become drinking buddies.
The alcohol actually helped us build a relationship that we'd never really had, because that's how we got together. He said that he felt it was kind of like having Whitey and Billy with him. It did build our relationship, and so we loved it.
It was all fun and glory. Hey, where can we go next? What can we drink next? How much can we drink next? Looking back on it, that was not a way to get to know somebody, especially your father. We just felt like that's the only way we could get close to him.
I never felt that we did have that connection as children. He couldn't come to our games because people would bother him. He would have to sit in the car and watch the games. Sometimes we wouldn't even know he was there.
One time he took us to the Harlem Globetrotters. We were there 5 or 10 minutes and people just started hounding him and stuff, and we just had to get up and leave.
When Dad was home, we would have backyard football games. You could see in my dad that he enjoyed it, but he didn't really know how to express himself as a father. And a lot of it was he was gone. We didn't know this guy that was this huge personality. It was a hard childhood because our mom raised us.
I spent most of my life alone. They never had the company of their dad. They did not have the discipline. It got pretty difficult when they all began to be teenagers.
I took my first drink at 13 or something. We did so much partying, it's not even funny.
You know, I was doing drugs then, doing cocaine, drinking, and I was pretty out of it. We put ourselves in some very stupid and dangerous, idiotic situations.
I was living with 5 active alcoholics. I was one crazy lady. I had the 4 kids and Mick.
He never felt at home anywhere, never felt comfortable anywhere after baseball because he was never in his element. He always felt like there were no strings attached. He treated himself like he was a free agent out there doing whatever he wanted to do.
By the early 1980s, Mantle's life had become a mess. His family and marriage washed out in a drunken haze. Professionally, he was going nowhere. In 1983, he was briefly banned from baseball for taking a job at a casino in Atlantic City. He had no choice. He needed the money.
Billy Martin. Did you get that trap shot?
But he would soon find a new and profitable way to capitalize on his fame.
Don't film the putt.
This incredible memorabilia era began in which people would pay money for a Mickey Mantle shirt, for an autographed ball. He said, boy, if I had known that, I would have saved all my dirty jocks. But he did make a great deal of money, which really changed his life.
I thought he was one of the funniest people I'd ever met. And I think that was one of the things that really attracted me to Mickey, was his sense of humor.
In providing funds to young researchers, as well as the more established, the Deafness Research Foundation. What you say? Here these motherfuckers going down. One good thing about being deaf, you don't have to listen to that shit, right?
During the memorabilia craze, Mickey hired Greer Johnson, a business manager, who helped organize his resurgent career. Mantle's autograph had become the most sought after in the industry. Johnson also became the new woman in his life. A life which had now become increasingly like his old one. Once again, Mickey Mantle found himself on center stage, dealing with the spotlight. In his playing days, Mantle could be difficult with his fans and the media. He was uncomfortable with the attention and struggled to understand it. As a middle-aged ex-ball player with no heroics left to provide, his incomprehension turned to resentment.
We'd see people come up for an autograph, and I'm talking about 40, 45-year-old men. Oh my God, that's Mickey. Grown men would cry. Literally, tears would come down their cheek when they would meet Mickey. I mean, it was almost like a revelation. It was almost like a religious experience to these people. And Mickey just, he just didn't understand that.
He never really understood why he was beloved. Why an adult male like me, I'd walk into a room, and if he were there, I sweat, and I follow him like I'm 6.
He didn't aspire to that. He didn't pretend to be anything but a kid from Commerce, Oklahoma. Why did they love me so much? I just played bleeping baseball. He tried everything in his power to undo that.
God damn. I don't give a shit about the hair. Let's get this over with, all right?
Sorry.
The hair.
It may have been the liquor talking, but the hero his fans still worshipped had become a broken and bitter man.
I walked up to Mickey Mantle and introduced myself. I'm probably one of the first kids in this country named after you, born in 1953. And Mickey Mantle was so drunk, he looked at me and he said, you know what, kid, you know how many kids in this country are named after Mickey Mantle? He said, go away, don't bother me.